Welcome, Purpose Driven Podcast. This is Alex Cornwall, your host. I am so excited to be here today with an amazing man, Rick Trimmer. I met him a few months ago. It's been like, what, a year?
Oh, I am in it?
No, but it's been like a year. I'm asking you, I guess you are.
Yeah.
But the one thing I know about Rick is I met him and I felt like I've known him for years. He's the most genuine, honest man. His story is absolutely amazing. You're going to want to get a pen and paper for this one. Take notes. This man can really change your life if you listen to his story. And I'm just excited to have him on. Welcome, Rick. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely, man. Happy to be here.
No, really, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to, or giving me the opportunity to learn more about your story. I mean, I've known you for a little while now. We've hung out a couple times. It's amazing. When we first met, I felt like I've known you forever.
Me too. It's natural conversations.
And that's one thing I love about people like you is just you're genuine, you're just heartfelt, and you put people first.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And I love your story, like what I've heard and what Gina and what you've told me a little bit.
Yeah, you had Gina on here on your podcast.
I did.
Yeah,
so Gina,
that was cool.
Gina Trimmer, I think that was like episode 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know you were that new to this. So
I am.
It's cool, man.
Oh, I love it. So, I mean, like I said before, like the whole purpose of this is you've had a lot of success in your life. I mean, you're 30, what? 38, 40?
No, I'm 42 now.
You're 42?
Yeah.
You're older than me?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh my God.
How old are you?
I'm only 41.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, you retired at an early age.
Yeah, 36.
You know, you made a decision to get to work, retire because you wanted to travel. Me and Gina, we talked about that.
Okay.
You know, but more importantly, I love to know your story of, you know, where that drive came from.
Right.
You know, and the intention behind it all. So, I mean, take us back. Like, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, I didn't always have this drive. You know, I really didn't. My parents, so I grew up in a, middle-class family, didn't have a lot of money, but wasn't poor, and I was born in Cedar City, Utah, moved to Vegas when I was 8, absolutely hated Vegas.
Even at 8 years old?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm always an outdoor kid. I always have been, love catching lizards and chasing critters and being in the mountains, and Vegas is not that.
I was about to say, there's nothing like that in Vegas.
And I was miserable. I remember crying all the time about wanting to come home and see grandma and be in Utah. And so we lived there for 6 years. My dad started a company down there, and he ended up selling half of it, and we moved back to St. George, not Cedar, I was happy.
Yeah.
And came here to St. George and went to high school. And
where'd you go to high school?
Pineview.
You really did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So went to Pineview.
I forget that you're a local boy like that.
Yeah, it's weird because I popped in right at high school.
That's so crazy.
Yeah,
because I went to Dixie
grade.
at that time.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
my girlfriend was from Dixie. So.
We never crossed paths.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
I know, it's weird. So I went to high school and then didn't, just like everybody, didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. I think that's a hard thing at that age. I've actually wanted, like I said, I'm new to this life of podcasts. This is my 3rd podcast we talked about before we turned on the recording, but I'm new to this, and I never wanted this. I never thought about it. It was always just, I want to create enough money to where I don't have to work, trade my time for money, and spend more time with my family. And as my story progressed, I never knew what it was going to be, but, we went through some bad times. I'll get into that. But, as it kind of went along, I never thought that I was writing something that would inspire people.
Yeah.
Never crossed my mind. And I was just trying to get through it. And so as I came through it out the other side, and now I'm, telling people about my story and what I'm doing, I'm noticing that people are like, wow, that's a crazy story.
It's amazing to me that everybody has a story.
Yeah, we all do. You have to.
Everybody. And
Absolutely.
it's your willingness to go share it that will change and inspire others.
Absolutely.
You brought up a really good point there. Like, I really didn't have the intention to do something like this either.
Yeah. But this makes me nervous. I told you before, before we started recording, last night I'm laying in bed. This is my 3rd podcast I've been on ever. Never thought of doing this. And so last night I'm laying in bed and I'm like, man, maybe I can get out of this. You know, what do I need to say? I don't want to, mess up Alex, but at the same time, my throat's getting itchy.
I want to come pick your ass up.
Yeah, and good.
I want to pull your ass out of bed. Come on, we're going.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, is people see me and I think they see my Instagram and they see my life and they think, oh, it's perfect and he can't make a mistake. And it's like, man, I'm laying in bed last night, with cold sweats.
Wanting to quit.
Yeah.
Before you even started.
Yeah, it's like, I'm nervous. I'm nervous right now. It's not natural for me to have cameras on me and lights and, what am I going to say? I don't want to offend people. I don't want to brag. I don't want to, you're trying to think of all the right things to say and you're on the spot.
Well, I honestly think that brings out and it shows the true character that you are and who you are.
Right.
If you're willing to get uncomfortable like this.
Yeah.
To hopefully inspire that one person.
Hopefully.
That's it. Like I don't do this to inspire the masses. I'm not looking to be a guru or any of that kind of crap or like be famous or any of that.
Right.
I'm here just like you. If we can just inspire that one person, that one guy.
Right.
To shift his mindset just an inch. It doesn't even have to be
dramatic.
Dramatic.
Yeah, life-changing.
Like Tony Robbins says, 2 millimeter shift
absolutely
can change the direction of your life.
Yeah. My dad always says the horse that wins the race wins by a nose.
Yeah.
They don't win by usually 5 or 10 lengths. They just barely win, but it changes their whole life.
Yeah. It's so true.
I agree. It's those little changes and I've listened to your podcast. I've listened to a couple of them last night, a couple of them, a month ago. And they affected me, and it's like, I don't have everything figured out. And so I'm like, oh, that guy said this or Alex said that. I can apply this. I can apply that.
See, and that's the key is applying it. How
Absolutely.
Many people, I honestly think that's why the self-improvement industry is $1 billion industry.
Absolutely.
Because so many people listen to these books and read these books and they don't do anything
Absolutely.
with it. I did it for years.
Yeah. What is it? January 6th, 5th? I don't know what it is today. And so everybody's New Year's resolutions, and I go to the gym. I know. I show up at the gym. I've been going to the gym, regularly for the last couple months, and I show up at the gym on, the last couple weeks, and I can't find a place in the parking spot, in the parking lot, and
wait until next month.
And that's what everybody said. I'm talking to these other guys gym guys that go way more than I do, and I'm like, man, this is frustrating. I'm waiting for machines, and they're like, give it 2 weeks, and I'm like, really? And he says, yeah, 50% of the people here will be gone in 2 weeks. And then 50% of them will be gone in another 2 weeks.
Yep.
So you take 100 people, that's what, 25 people out of 100 that are going to make it 30 days.
That's it.
And then they keep dropping off, I'm sure, every 50% every 2 weeks after that.
Yep. And it's sad to see, to be honest with you. But the reality is when I look back on my life, I was like that.
Yeah, me too. I was too.
I was one of those statistics.
Yeah.
I can't say that I wasn't.
Me either.
It was the ability to make that decision like
Absolutely.
You're talking about going, wait a second, what if I just went another month?
Yep.
And it's not even focused on that month. It's all I got to do is focus on today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I got to go to the gym today.
Yeah.
And then not worry about it.
Absolutely.
And then tomorrow I wake up, I got to go to the gym today.
Yep.
A day by day process.
Yeah.
So, well, let's take it back a little bit because right now, I mean, knowing you, knowing where you are, you're a very intentional man.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have intention. You live your life with intention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you plan out where you're traveling right now.
Do we leave Monday?
Where are you going?
Costa Rica.
You suck.
Yeah, for a month.
For a month?
For a month. I'm excited. I love Costa Rica.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I do
Maybe
plan.
We'll come down and visit you.
You should.
So
yeah, I'm going with Ryan Mickler.
Are you really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Much fun. But I mean, you weren't always like you were saying, like you didn't have direction before and everything.
No.
So take us back to
that pivot.
Well, not before the pivot, and the decision of why you made the pivot.
Okay, so I was going to college. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I had no work ethic, and it was intentional. I actually wrote a letter to my mom and dad when I think I was like 21. They kept calling me saying, I had a couple uncles that were just, garbage that are like 50, 60, And they says, we're worried you're going to turn out like these uncles. You're going to
Your parents were telling you that at 21.
Yeah. Terrified. I mean, I got fired from my dad's company, I think 5 or 6 times.
Wait, your dad fired you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you weren't doing jack shit.
No, I was horrible, man. And I was horrible, but I wrote him a big letter and I says, look, Mom and Dad, you have chapters in life.
Yep.
And I still believe this. I hope my kids don't follow it quite as hard as I did, but you have chapters in life. And I'm up until 25, I can be a shithead, for lack of a better word. I can date girls and not
go live life.
I just wanted that. I lived out of my truck for a few months. I bought an RV with a buddy of mine, and we, just random weird stuff.
Yeah.
Just living in the moment. I'd work with my dad. I'd get like $100, $200, and I'm like, oh, I'm good.
Let me ask you this. Do you regret any of it?
No, not at all.
That's awesome.
No, not at all. I actually have some brother-in-laws that would pull me aside in those times. One of them in particular, Travis, because he knew I was getting all this pressure. You need to grow up. In Utah, it's like grow up, get married,
if you're
go on a mission.
If you're 25 and not married in Utah, there's something wrong.
There's something wrong with you. 100%.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. So luckily, I had a couple brother-in-laws and friends that would pull me aside. I had a couple buddies that got married at 21. Not that they didn't love their wife, but they were like, dude, you're living the dream. Keep going. You can get married later.
So they were living vicariously through.
Yeah, and they were. Yeah. And so I made a conscious decision, and I understand my parents' concern because it's funny because Gina met me like 3 or 4 months after I changed. And so I wrote them this letter 3 or 4 years before I made my change. And I said, look, up until 25, I'm going to be this way. Just deal with it. Do not stress. I promise you I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be successful. I have that in me, but I don't want to do that right now. I want to be 21 years old.
So in all reality, I mean, if you really think about that, at 21, you still were living your life with intention.
100%.
And so you still had intention back then. You knew what you wanted and you lived it to the fullest.
Yeah. And I would tell anybody out there listening, especially the younger kids, is live your life. I was getting so much pressure to get married. I had these cute girlfriends that were beautiful and nice, and I could have married. Honestly, there was 2 girls that I dated for a lot of that period, and I could have married either one of them. Mm-hmm. And I was getting pressure heavily to do that. And I was like, I'm 22. I don't want to be married.
Do you know what's so crazy about that? Sorry to keep
you're good.
You off,
yeah,
but it's like, think about society right now and the relationships and everything. How many people are pressured into relationships that they shouldn't be?
100%. And that's the most important decision you will ever make, I believe.
I know. I agree.
It's like, if you don't have a person there, I look back and if those girls are listening, sorry, but I wouldn't be where I am today if I'd have married those 2 girls. They were nice. They were beautiful. They had good values. But I know that they wouldn't,
They weren't your person.
No. Gina, whenever I went to her and I'm like, hey, I'm going to start another business, she's like, I trust you. And then I lost everything, which I can get into. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, sorry, babe. And she's like, it's okay. I trust you. And I'm like, what?
You know what's interesting you saying that?
Why?
I love that. It's when you made that decision at 25 to change your life, you met Gina 3 months after.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never thought about that.
I mean, really think about that.
Yeah, that gives me cold chills.
It's an intention that you set, like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And boom.
Yeah.
Your person came into your life.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a testament that, whether you believe in God, creator, or universe or energy, like me, that's energy.
Yeah.
That's you telling the universe going, hey, look, I'm ready.
Right.
I'm ready for my person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And boom, she's there.
Yeah. You look for what you find what you're looking for,
exactly.
and that's what I obviously was looking for.
Yeah.
And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I honestly never really thought about that, but that's true. So
take us back. 25, you made a decision. Mm-hmm. How did that look? I mean, you're living with your buddies, had an RV.
Yeah. So I was actually I was going to SUU, and again, just no work ethic, just enough money to throw gas in my tank in my, little truck, $500 truck. And I'd taken a lot of credits at college. I knew in college, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I thought, well, heck, I'll just kind of go to school and take whatever classes I want until something triggers me.
Yeah. And
so it was funny because I got like 4 or 5 years into college. I think I started college when I was like 20, so probably 24. And my mom's like, hey, you should probably graduate. What are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I'm not going to take that piece of paper and get a job. And I knew that. Mm-hmm. And she says, it'd be good to have. And I'm like, okay. So I went into the counselor and I says, hey, counselor, I've been going to school for 4 or 5 years. What do I have enough credits to graduate with? And she's like, I had like 80 extra credits, but no focus.
Yeah.
I was taking like piano and violin and, anything. I'm like, I'd go and look at the page before the semester, and I'm like, taxes, I'll take that. That's probably good to learn. Oh, piano, that'd be cool. Guitar, that sounds fun. And so I had all these credits, and she's like, you can't graduate. I was 12 credits. The closest one I was to was accounting.
Yeah.
I was 12 credits short. So I'm like, well, I'll get that. And so one day I was going out to my truck, and I started the truck up, and it was out of gas. Wouldn't start. And I called my mom, and I says, hey, Mom, can I borrow some money? I'm broke. And you have to understand, this was years of me calling her. And she's like, I'm done, Rick. I'm not loaning you any money. So I called my grandma, who was always there for me. And she called my cousin, and my cousin, who was like 10 years younger than me, probably 6 or 7 years younger than me, shows up in Cedar City in the parking lot and says, hey, man, my mom just called and said, you need $10. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, okay. And he kind of laughed when he handed it to me, like, what am I doing? And I took it, and I broke down. I'm like, what am I doing? It's time. I was like 24 and a half, and I'm like, okay, I've got 6 months to honor my letter to my dad and mom. So
you always had that letter in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
You always remembered you wrote it.
Yep.
And you knew you were going to do it. Act on it.
So I still didn't have a really good idea, but I had a couple ideas. And so I called my mom, and I says, I'm done college. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm leaving. I mean, middle of the semester. And she's like, what are you doing? And I says, I just hit rock bottom as far as this life. I'm ready. I need to mature now. And
did she believe you?
No, not at all. It's funny because they would talk to Gina, and they still talk to Gina. They're like, you have no idea who Rick was before you met him. I mean, it's even weird to me. I mean, I flipped on a dime. I went from, I could not work a 40-hour work to save my life, like a 20-hour work week, to working 80, 90 hours a week for years.
Just grinding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just completely flipped over, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to, I said goodbye to my friends. I remember walking around the house. I always tell Gina this story. My dad used to always say, you can't soar with the eagles if you're running around with the turkeys.
I love that.
And so I remember being in this house. I woke up one morning after a party, and looking around, and everybody's passed out. And I thought, it's time, I got to do something. And it was after I'd left college a couple months later. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out. And I actually went around and like kissed them on the head, and they're all passed out,
Yeah.
And I had to say goodbye to them in that life. And it was the hardest thing I ever did. I cried walking out the door, and they're good, good boys. They just weren't where I was. Yeah. And I left. So I left, and I started my first company, and did well with it. Started making, at the time I went from making a couple $100 a week, a year earlier, to making, I was taking home about 120,000.
That's really good.
Yeah, a year.
What kind of company was it?
I was called At Your Service. It was funny. I got the idea. My grandma was at her counter, and I'm gonna give away one of my ideas because I still want to do it. So
do it, man.
I know. Well, I want my boys to do it.
Okay.
But she was filling out these checks, and she's like, Roy, who mowed our lawn? She's like, oh, Timmy. Who did our pest control? I can't remember. Who washed our car? I don't know. And I'm like, oh, light bulb. So I started them all in one.
There you go.
So I went around, and it made it easy. So I started knocking doors. So I'm knocking on a door, and I'm like, hey, excuse me, ma'am, do you need your lawn mowed? No, it's Desertscape. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you need your car washed? No. Do you need your, windows washed? Oh, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
And it increased my chance. I had like 6 services, and it increased my chances of closing that sale.
Yeah.
I got up to 10 employees.
Really?
Yeah, got to 10 employees within a year, and just grinding. And then I started United Wood about 18 months after I started that company. And United Wood, I started that on the weekends. I was driving down to Mexico. I had the idea on vacation down there. Saw some guys making some stair parts, which my dad owned a stair company.
Yeah.
And light bulb.
Yeah.
Went over and talked to him, like, I'll sell you this post for, I think it was like $40. I came up to my dad, and I'm like, hey, if I had this post, what would you buy it for? You're making hundreds of them. And he's like, we'd pay $80 for that.
Well, there you go, right in the middle.
So I'm running at your service. And then on the weekends, I would drive down to Mexico with my buddy. I started it with my buddy here in town, Sean Sullivan. And we'd drive down to Mexico with a U-Haul, and these little Mexicans would meet us at the border, would unload, 500
Seriously?
posts into the back of our U-Haul from their truck. drive up and, you know, you'd make 20 grand in a weekend.
Yeah.
And so I thought, man, you know, at your service, I sold a couple pieces of it, you know, the landscaping business I sold and the car washing business I sold of it. I didn't know how to sell it all at the time. I was too young. So I kind of parted it out, shut the other ones down, and started running with the United Wood. That was 2006.
Okay.
So I was 26 years old. And, you know, looking back, this is another piece of advice for people. You know, we went in all in, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on, you know, our signs and our showroom and our truck and
Just everything.
Yeah. And I look back and it's like, man, I could have done that for half that.
Yeah.
You know, I was caught up in that, you know, lifestyle of show.
Image.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought, you know, you have to fake it till you make it and all that stuff. And
do you really believe in that saying?
no,
I don't either.
not anymore. You know, I think people actually value more. I have a lot more money now than I have ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I, you know, I don't look like it. You know, I don't care what what somebody thinks if I have, you know,
because you don't do it for them.
No,
You do
it's for me. It's freedom.
It's a byproduct of who you are.
100%.
And it's your freedom for your family.
Absolutely.
So your mindset shifts. It's amazing how when you set goals, like when you're very first, okay, I want this. And it's all materialistic crap.
It is.
And once it actually, you start getting meaning, you're like, wait a second, I would rather have an experience with my family taking them to Costa Rica.
Yep. 100%.
It becomes more meaningful.
It does.
You get the emotion
They say
behind
it's proven we get more joy out of trips than we do out of things.
I love it.
You know?
Yeah.
So I wish I would have learned that lesson sooner. Again, I didn't. You know, it's actually funny because my little boys came to me like a year and a half ago, and you know, we'd been traveling. We got home, got stuck here because of COVID, and they saw some kids selling lemonade, and they're like, "Dad, we want to sell lemonade. You know, we want a lemonade stand." And I'm like, "Okay, here we go.
And it starts.
Here we go."
That's
you know,
awesome.
And so, you know, I think most parents, they want their life's kids to be easy. So they're like, "Okay, you're going to sell lemonade, little Timmy. I'll go get you a table. I'll get you the lemonade. I'll buy everything. You sit out there in a chair. I'm going to call all the neighbors around and say, hey, my boy's out there selling lemonade. Please go buy, you know, and get some lemonade, support him." Not me.
Oh,
you know,
I love that.
I sat down with my kids and I'm like, okay, here's how it works. I'm like, do you want a table and 2 chairs, or do you want that big stand we saw out there where it's all framed and, you know, plywood? And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, this one's probably $100. That one's probably $1,000. Like, we want the $1,000 one. I'm like, okay, all right. So what we're going to do is you're going to take out a loan from the Bank of Rick. And I have my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old on the couch.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And I says, okay, I'm going to loan you $1,000. You're going to be $1,000 in debt before you start. I'm taking your bike for $1,000. I got to get to
Collateral.
$2,000 in collateral.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm taking your Xbox, your bike, all these. And I made a list. And I says, if you default, I keep this and I take your lemonade stand. And they're like, what?
You're like, wait a second.
I says, but if you go with $100, then I just take your bike. And if you fail, you only lose your bike. You don't lose all these other things. You're not as in debt, you know? And I ran him through the whole business plan. I'm like, I'm charging the interest on the $1,000. You know, I says, it'll be a fair rate.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
love this.
And literally, I went through the whole gamut. Gina's sitting over there like, you know, in the corner, like, you're going too far. They're 10 and 7. And I'm like, if I can teach these boys this, because again, you know, with United Wood, I can get into that, but I lost everything. I went so big thinking I was so smart.
Unstoppable.
And reality came in and slapped me across the face, you know, so fast with the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost everything.
2008, right?
Yep. It was a couple years later for us. I think it was like 9 or so. We made it a little longer, which was even worse because we thought we were invincible. Mm-hmm. So we kept with our, you know, spending. And, you know, it's funny because I was making more money than I'd ever made. And it was all, my whole life was financed. You know, we were going to Hawaii, we were going to Alaska. We were, you know, all my trucks were payments. I had $30,000 motorcycles, which were payments, big house, which was financed. And so as soon as that faucet turned off of, you know, cash flow,
yep,
the whole house of cards fell and it got dark. You know, they started repossessing my cars. I remember pulling up to one day and a guy called and says, hey, I need to repossess your 4-wheeler. And I says, okay, I'll meet you there, you know, and load it up. It's, you know, I actually drove my cars to the repo lot, which is not common, I guess. And I says, I'll be there in a half hour and I'll help you load it. I got the key. And I show up and there's skid marks down my driveway. He's got a winch on it, trying to drag it, and it's like stuck on the side of his.
Why the hell? Why do you do that?
He just didn't think
that you were actually going to show up.
He's like, oh, there it is. I'm a repo man. I'm going to get this thing. And I pull up with a key. My neighbors are all standing outside. It's all, Mike's repo down the side of his truck.
Yeah.
And again, at that time, I cared.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I don't care. And not even take it. I didn't care about the foiler. I cared about my image. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is embarrassing. And I'm like, I don't know these people very well. Why do I care what they think? My family, is struggling to have food on the table. That's what I should be caring about.
Exactly.
Not my image. Yep. And so, I went through some really dark times and lost everything, moved into my grandparents' basement. And so, I think we're going into a pretty dark recession here. Who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows. But I think things could get really tough right now. If you'd interviewed me 6 months ago, it was a different mindset. And so anybody listening to this that's going through hard times or going to go through hard times, like you said, it's your attitude. It's how you face it.
Yep.
I didn't face it well. I went into it. I was depressed. I was sad. I locked myself in my room. My wife was pregnant with my little boy. We ended up moving into my grandparents' basement, and it was humiliating. I told people for years that I sold my truck, I sold my four-wheeler, I sold my house. I didn't. Yeah. But I didn't know. I was still again worried about my image. And looking back, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Honestly, and it's not even just because of the lesson. But we lived with my grandparents for 2 years, and they were my heroes growing up. Mm-hmm. My little boy, his best friend was Roy, my grandpa. That would have never happened if I wouldn't have lost everything, So, I look back and I think, man, what if I'd have made, and this never, ever, ever crossed my mind, but you hear people, who take their lives. Yep. They hit a bad moment and take their life. And I always call that a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I look back and I think, man, what if on that day where I was at my lowest and I had some really, really low lows, I would have done something like that. And I look back and it's like, wow, I would have missed my grandpa bouncing my kid on his knee for 2 years. Yeah. And so if you're going, and my wife, I proved, that she didn't marry me for the money. Yeah. It was a thought because when she first met me, I was doing pretty well. You never know. I had a lot of friends whose wives bailed on them when they lost their money. And I went to Gina, I'm like, we lost everything. She's like, we're good.
Yeah. We still got each other.
And so I got so much out of those dark times that I wouldn't trade it. I almost am grateful for it.
How long did it take you to get that gratitude? Because in the moment,
probably yesterday.
I was about to say, that's so true. Because it's amazing when you're sharing the story. Yeah. How I can relate.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat.
Okay.
I lost everything as well.
Okay.
2008.
Okay.
Everything.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Real estate.
Yeah.
Went from boom to boom. I was selling real estate.
Yeah. Okay.
House, cars, repossession.
Okay.
Feeling that like that emptiness of like, oh, they're taking something else. Living
failure.
Living with family after family after family.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like it's
same story.
It's so crazy to listen to it because it's like, man,
it's a mirror in front of your face.
I feel like you're telling my story.
Yeah, that's crazy.
However, I was one of the ones that wanted to commit suicide.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So I was one of the ones that like, nope, I'm done.
Wow. And it's that's wild.
Miracle that I'm actually here.
Yeah.
And so,
and look what's changed. That's the thing that people that are listening, it's like, look at your life now. You're with Keisha. I'm pretty sure you're very successful. Financially.
We do well now.
Yeah.
And it's
like
good.
it's like I said, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You can overcome it.
Well, I think for me, and did you go through this? For me, it took me a long time. I mean, to really reflect back and having that gratitude for what I went through, because it took me a long time to forgive myself for what I actually put myself through.
Yeah.
Did you go through that?
I didn't. I never did. I never really thought, it sounds like you went further than I did in the dark.
Deep. I went deep.
I was more like playing video games and what's the point of working, not what's the point of life. And I never really, I genuinely never had that thought of, and I don't even know that I necessarily went into depression. Gina says she thinks I did, But so it sounds like you went somewhere
I was
deeper, and which is good for you to talk about because I can't relate. You know, I have a buddy of mine that I'm actually helping right now with his finances, Wayne, if you're listening. And he's had some pretty dark times, and he tells me about it. And you know, it's kind of like when somebody says, I broke up with my girlfriend, and if you haven't broken up with a girlfriend, you can't relate.
Yeah.
But if you have, it's like, wow, I know you can't eat. You're sick to your stomach.
You're in bed.
So, you know, I encourage you, and I'm sure you do, you know, to share that story to help these guys that are going through that, because, you know, I didn't have that.
Well, I love what you say is suffering is temporary.
Yeah.
And you don't,
If you
don't know that in the moment.
Yeah.
And you feel like it's going to last forever.
Yes.
But once you get through that storm.
Yes.
What comes after.
So what pulled you out of that, you know, because, you know, I have some buddies going through some pretty dark things right now. And I'm like, man, you know, good on you to keep going. And they're like, what's my choice? And I'm like, you have a choice. Some people choose not to keep going. Mm-hmm. They can stop this.
For me, it was making the choice of not keep going, mm-hmm. to literally having a gun in my hand, mm-hmm. and ready to pull the trigger, mm-hmm. and my boy giving me a call, saving my life.
Wow. Yeah.
That was, if it wasn't for that in my life and my boy calling me, literally the moment.
Wow.
I wouldn't be here today.
That's wild.
And so everything happens for you, not to you.
All right.
I'm a firm believer in that now in my life.
Yeah.
I needed to go through that, just
mm-hmm.
like you needed to go through 2008, because mm-hmm. look at where your intentions shifted.
Oh, yeah.
Now you have an intentional life, mm-hmm. to live life to its fullest, in the present.
Right. And my financial situation, you know, I was reckless. You know, my dad always tells me, you know, he was trying to help me. You know, he was an entrepreneur, and he's like, Rick, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm like, you don't know. This money's not going to stop. I'm a genius. And then it all stopped, and he says, told you so. You know, and he always says, you kids have to touch the stove.
See, those were the hardest people to talk to. And I took personally those people that said, hey, I told you so. You should have finished college. Yeah. Hey, I told you so. You should have done this. Yeah. It's like I should have, could have, would have, a lot of things.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, you know what?
I didn't.
Yeah. And this is the path I chose. And so this is the one I'm going.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, you know, to say you know, I told you so, it's, you know, that's hindsight. That's the, you know, Monday morning quarterback, you know, that's pretty easy to say, but at the time, none of us knew. And
that's somebody justifying their own feelings that they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
What you were doing.
Yeah. And that happens a lot. Yeah. And I actually went through it with a couple of people, my brothers included, you know, where a lot of people kind of gave up. You know, when I went through it, it was funny because my wife would come in and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just playing video games. There's no reason to go to work. There's no work.
Yeah.
And I never thought, it never crossed my mind to not continue to be an entrepreneur or to continue trying. I couldn't shut down my business because I had like $635,000 in debt, and my dad's ranch was guaranteeing it. So I had a ball and chain hooked to me that was so daunting. You know, if I could have declared bankruptcy, you know, or something, it would have been easier.
But they would have taken the ranch.
They would have taken the ranch. So again, one of the best things that ever happened to me, because, you know, I'm looking at this company, you know, I sold shares to some guys in Vegas back then, 20% for a lot of money. And I bought it back like 4 years later for $2,000. And I remember him coming up to it, and I'm like, I'll buy your shares. And I didn't have any money at the time. I was just like, I want to get rid of this guy and not have his opinion. Yeah. And two guys. And he pulls up, and I'm like, here's your 2,000. He's like, sucker. I just took you, you know? And I thought he had, you know? So it shows you that value. Yeah. You know?
Do you know what's crazy about this too? Is throughout all of that, I mean, you started this company. Mm-hmm. It's still active today.
That's what I mean.
That's one thing I love about it.
Yeah. And I sold, you know, I ended up selling, I own I own 38%. So I sold 62% of it again after I bought it back, grinded it out for years. Went from back then I had, you know, we got up to like 300 employees in Mexico at a mill I had.
Holy crap.
And then we had to shut that down, and we moved it to the States. And then I started my mill here and whatever. And I got up to like 17 guys and ended up getting down to 2 of us. Yeah. And, you know, now it's at 50, you know, so.
Did you structure it differently?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No debt. There's zero debt.
Recession proof.
we're not flashy, you know, I don't have, you know, my trucks are old and my tools are old, or, you know, I don't need everything brand new. I don't have, you know, it's just, completely different. It cash flows, it makes money, and it will make money in a recession. I guarantee it. It may not make as much because the volume goes down, but it will not go out of business. That's good. I sleep at night for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been a wild ride on those fronts, you know, where, like you said, people put their expectations on you. Yeah. And what they are able to do, and don't listen to that. You know, I knew that I'd made mistakes. I didn't blame the banks. I blamed myself. I'm like, I got greedy. I was buying stupid crap. I was living outside my means, and next time I won't. And so as soon as work started coming back, I just turned the machine back on and got out of debt and lived differently. Yeah. You know? And so people that are going through bad times, you know, just change. Like you said, pivot. You know, don't give up.
It's a 2 millimeter shift too.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be some huge, like, okay, I'm switching everything about my life.
Yeah.
No, you pick one.
I'm going to get out of real estate and I'm going to go into, you know, this. No, it's like, no, just when you do real estate, you know, do it this way or do it that way, you know. And
actually do it.
Right.
Actually apply yourself to the business. Yeah. Show up.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that's what most people, I think, this day and age don't have.
They don't do.
And they, you know, Gina, you know, we can talk about this in a little bit, but she started a podcast.
Yes. We're definitely going to bring that up.
Yeah. And we have a couple other friends that have started podcasts at the same time. And I have a good friend of mine, Ryan Mickler, who is a partner in my wife's podcast. He's a part owner of it.
And he runs the
Order of Man
podcast.
It's like 8 years old and killing it.
Yeah, he's in the top 10.
Is he?
I think so. I don't know.
He's huge. And I always ask him, I'm like, man, you know, what is your, you know, what's your secret? And he's like, consistency.
Yep.
Time and consistency.
Showing up.
And, you know, we're like 6 months into her starting hers, and, you know, you have expectations, and you have, you know, where you think it's going to go, and you're excited, you know, it's natural. Like, she's got a you know, a group called the Sisterhood, and we're like, it's going to be this many members. It's going to be this big. And it wasn't, you know, it started out slower. We're learning that, you know, again, this is off topic, but the mindset of men is different than women. And, you know, so we're hitting these roadblocks. You know, we wake up and we're bleeding money. You know, we've invested a lot of money. We're losing money every month. And Ryan, what are we doing wrong? And he's like,
nothing.
You're 6 months into it.
Yeah.
Call me in 2 years. Call me in 3 years. He's like, he has his statistic. 90% of podcasts end after 6 months, you know, because, and it's like, you know, we're not doing it for the members, but we also, you know, the situation we're in is our time is valuable. You know, we are very, like you said, very thought out on where we put our time. And she is doing it because she wants to help women and herself. She wants to build this community. And if you're doing it and there's one or two girls, you know, to me, I'm like, is that worth it? And it is to her.
Well, I mean, we talked about that before. I mean, if we can come on here and we're impacting at least just one guy.
Exactly.
This is worth it.
Exactly. And it's impacting me.
You know what I'm
Talking
saying?
to you, hearing your story, I'm already good. I'm glad I woke up at 5 a.m. this morning.
I know, right?
You know?
You're welcome.
Yeah. But it's true, you know, it's like.
It's not about again, it's not about hitting the masses. I really don't care.
I know, yeah.
And you bring up a good point. Let's go back a little bit, like on these. I think it's interesting right now, this push where, you know, Ryan, he has that Order of Man. He's got the group of guys versus women and your wife starting that sisterhood. I think men are looking for a way and an avenue right now to share their emotions because in society, we're not allowed to.
Yeah.
We're macho
it's a safe
men.
Space.
We can't share. No, you don't supposed to have emotions like women.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm noticing right now, it's like in masterminds that I'm in and groups that I'm in, like people, like I love it because it's a place for me to go with like-minded men, like-minded people, to share my emotions, to tell them, no, I'm real. Like,
and have them hold you accountable.
Guess what? Last week, I just sat down and started crying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, why? I don't know.
Right.
But guess what? I have emotions.
Yeah, we do.
And I just
all of us
started
do.
crying.
Absolutely.
Is that a bad thing?
No.
No, society thinks, I'm weak.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. That makes me strong.
That's absolutely.
And I think women on the other side, they like to hold that in. This is just me personal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
and I don't. I'm not. Yeah,
I don't want to stereotype Rick like that. I'm gonna get like shit from kids.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. I think they are nervous. I think that they, you know, again, we're talking for women that I know very little about. But
the more and more I live with one, the more and more I don't understand them.
Yeah,
but I love it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I love her to death.
Me too.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So. You know, the thing that we're noticing that is different. Again, this is kind of moving ahead, but. You know, she started this membership, and I think it's natural for men to spend money and work on themselves. We're the breadwinners, right?
Yep.
In most cases. So when you're and I don't know if I'm in control of our money because my wife wasn't good with money. Not that I was, but I'm better. So I don't know if this is normal, but I'm in control of our money in our household. And so what we're noticing is when these women want to go join a group, the men are either nervous, and this is honest. You know, me and Ryan came up with the idea. He'd been approached about starting a women's group, and he didn't have the right person.
Yeah.
And so we were in Hawaii hunting, and he brought up, we brought up Gina, and he says, I would love to do it with Gina. And I says, really? And he says, I think she's great. She's well-spoken, has the same values, you know, pretty much as us, aligned. And we thought, well, this is going to be great. We got Ryan's support. He's an owner. It's going to blow up. And then we launch it. And what we're seeing, and I, like I said, I knew a week or so before Gina knew about it. And I'm thinking about it. You know, I'm on the plane, I'm driving home, and I'm like, okay, what's this going to do to my my situation?
Lifestyle.
Yeah. What if she becomes a public speaker? What if she becomes famous? What if she starts making all this money? Is she going to need me? Is she going to want me? You know, it's an honest question.
Yeah.
And on a smaller scale, you know, I think these men, when their wives go to them and say, hey, I want to join this group, it's like, wait a minute, what is this? You know, is this a He-Man woman hater club? Or are you going to go in there and gossip about men and tear us down and start getting all your own ideas, you know, and leave me? And so that's what we're running into. It's actually kind of a weird thing where the man is either in control of the money and doesn't see a need to, and I'm paraphrasing, you know, I'm not, it's not every man, you know, we have 38 members in her group, and the husbands of them are awesome and amazing men that are like, I want my wife to have everything I've gotten out of the Iron Council. So it's not all of them, but there's a majority of men who I think, and I was in that boat where I was selfish. You know, it's like, I like controlling the money. If I control the money, I control her, you know, honestly. And if I, you know, keep her in this bubble, I control her. And then I'm looking at my wife, and she's not happy. She's not fulfilled. Yeah. You know, she raises our kids, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's all she ever wanted to be up to that point. But now she wants a little bit more. Yeah. And it's, you know, she doesn't want to work at the bank. She wants to help women change their lives. And so, you know, that's kind of where we're trying to change the mentality of, you know, these women, you know, they don't get in there. Gina's kicked a couple girls out of the group. They get in there and are cancer or
just toxic,
negative. You know, it's like, this is a place where you build people up, where you brag on your husband. And if you and your husband are having issues, they address that. And Gina tries to solve that. Marriage is not divorce is not an option for Gina. She's told me, she's like, we're done. You know, sorry. The only way you're getting out of this is if you're buried in the desert, you know? So if I go missing. But
last Gina,
what
part of the desert?
Where's he at? She's committed, you know. And so when these women come to her and they're like, "Hey, my marriage is rocky. I'm nervous," she tries to get. She always says, she got this from Seth Studley, where it's like, "What's under, below?" Yeah, you know, it's like, okay, you're mad at your husband today. Why? Because he's a jerk. Well, why do you think he's a jerk? And a lot of times it comes back to that woman where her hormones are off, or you know, the kids were being bad that day.
It's so funny you bring that up. It's like a lot of times when there's issues in relationships, I know when there's an issue in mine and Keisha's relationship, and I'm always pointing the blame.
Yeah.
I'm a guy. I was like, no, you're not doing this. You're not doing that. I'm an asshole.
Me too.
I do become an asshole. I feel so bad sometimes.
Me too.
But when I sit back and I'm by myself and I really reevaluate, like, okay, wait a second. That's because of you. Oh, wait, no, you did that.
Yeah.
And then you just get humbled really quick going like, I need to look in the freaking mirror.
Absolutely.
you know,
And
it's
so
like,
that's what Gene is doing. You know, they get into this group and there's 38 of them now. It's growing daily now. It's starting to get some traction. And it's really cool because I have a couple buddies whose wives got in it that were introverts. They're nervous, you know, I don't know what this is going to be. And now they're squad leaders, you know, and over teams of 6 girls and, you know, and my buddies are like, dude, my wife's, you know, we're communicating better. And, you know,
see, I think that right there, that word right there is deeper communication is what's needed.
I listened to your podcast because you're a communicator, right?
Well,
Are you not?
I try to be, but not in my relationship as
Are
much.
you? Okay.
No.
Okay.
Like Keisha, we kind of got into it a little bit this last week. Like she's like, why don't you treat our communication at a highest level like you treat your business communication?
I get that all the time.
And she's absolutely right. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
I do. I show up like I'm engaged with my people I coach. I'm engaged like this, and it's like, shit. I don't even engage with the woman that I love and I cherish, and I'm
the same way.
And so it's like, if I treated them the same,
it'd be better.
It would be my And so that's actually one of my number one goal for 2023 is have a deeper, more passionate relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
I mean, that is my number one goal. When I sat down to write my goals, that's the only thing that came into my mind.
That's awesome.
Because
if you do that one thing, it'll change every other aspect of your existence.
Exactly. I mean, all that thing, like even when you lost everything in 2008, let's go back a little bit to this.
Yeah.
Gina's like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, it's like, well, what if she like gets all this success and makes all this thing?
Should be okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Because I communicate with my wife.
Yeah.
You communicate with her. And so it's okay.
And if it's not okay, then there's a fundamental flaw.
It's called communication.
And we got to address it. We got to talk about it.
It's all about communication.
Right. Yeah, you bring it back to talking.
You know, if your wife really wants to be in coaching or a group setting.
Yeah.
Well, communicate.
Absolutely.
Like that's something that I really didn't do with Keisha when I was in a mastermind. I'm in one right now. And I brought up stuff here and there, but I didn't really communicate to the fullest of what I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think she was interested.
Right.
But how do I know she's interested if I'm not communicating?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. 100%.
So I think relationships, if you just open your freaking mouth and just communicate at a higher level, it alleviates so many problems.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, you know, like you said, you're working on yourself, you know, and you're joining these groups and trying to better yourself. And that's what the Order Man is for men. And then you have the sisterhood for women. And it's like, if you can get these, you know, people to come together, again, I was skeptical. I was, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, what's this going to do? Is this really going to change? And it's weird, you know, we started getting in a fight last night and she comes in and she's like, I heard this on, you know, this book the other day. And does this apply to you? And I'm like, whoa.
Like,
usually our fights are like yelling and screaming and angry. And she comes in and I'm angry. And she's like, hey, you know, I was reading this the other day in a book and I think this sounds like what I'm doing to you. Is this what I'm doing to you? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. And she's like, well, I apologize. I'm sorry. And I'm like, what? Is this a trap? You know, like, and it was weird. And our fight ended and we went back out and continued the movie. And, you know, so I just encourage people. I don't, you know, if it's not the sisterhood, I don't care. If it's not Iron Council, that's fine. Read a book, you know, listen to podcasts.
Do something.
But encourage, the biggest thing I'm seeing is encourage your wife, who may be a stay-at-home mom, to, you know, it can be just be the best stay-at-home mom she wants to be, you know, be more, you know, present with the kids, you know, whatever it is. But, So,
and just like your shirt says, I love your shirt. Like, show it.
Yeah.
Support.
Yeah.
Whatever thing they want to do.
Yeah. I made the shirt last night.
Support your wives.
Yeah.
Support them and help them.
And then what does the back say?
Communicate.
More communication, better connection, stronger commitment.
Yeah.
And I made this shirt last night and surprised her with it.
I love it.
And it's like, I wouldn't have wore this shirt a year ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of it. You know, it just didn't cross my mind. And now it's like, no, my wife is doing something she's passionate about. I'm going on a podcast and I'm going to make a shirt, you know,
I love it.
And throw it out there. And, you know, when I get home, she's going to be grateful and that'll pay off one way or another.
I hope so.
I know. Me too. Me too. Otherwise, what a waste.
Oh, I love it. I freaking love it, dude. So really quick. Let's go back unless you had something you were going to bring up.
No.
I mean, so you shifted like, let's go back to your story and let's finish this off. I mean,
Yeah.
you're now pretty much retired. I mean, you run businesses, so it's an active residual income. That's what I call it.
Passive.
Well, you still have to work for it.
I don't.
You still show up and check the books.
I don't.
Nothing.
This year I worked. I had to not clock in, but they monitored my time, and it was like 36 hours I worked this year.
Okay, so you still put in 36 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not truly passive. You still work 36 hours.
Yeah. I worked 4 days.
Yeah. Well, you still put in some time.
Yeah.
You still have to monitor it. You
Absolutely.
still have to look at it. You still have to be present with it.
Right. For
you
sure.
know, I mean, residual passive income, you still have to do a little bit.
For sure.
But you've got it down where 36 hours in a full year.
Yeah. When I retired in 36, I was spending, a lot longer checking on it.
Yeah.
And then the next year it got less. And the next year I got less. And
so your goal this year is 15 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It'll probably be more. I actually, spend a lot more time the end of this year because I think we're going into recession and I want to make sure my guys are, I've been through this and it's like, look, here's the things to watch out for. So up until the end of December, I'd worked like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I got like 30 hours in December with some heavy meetings on planning for this year. But what do you want to know?
Well, I mean,
how did I get there?
Yeah, well, not just how did you get there, but what made you to decide to do that?
So,
what was the driving factor? You lost everything, but what was the driving factor to retire and do the traveling that you do?
I think probably the thing that changed my life is I read The 4-Hour Workweek.
Okay.
By Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
And
Great book.
If
you haven't read it, read it.
Absolutely.
It's a great book.
It is. And it just changed my mindset. I was always raised, my dad used to always tell me, Rick, there's 2 things you're always going to have in life. You're going to have a car payment and you're going to have a house payment. That's just the way the world works.
Period. Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Okay. And that's what I was taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I started getting older and I started reading more books in the recession, thank goodness I started reading more books and like, what did I miss?
You started working on yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I had no job. So I'm like, well, I'm going to start reading all these books. So I started reading stuff. And I realized, from these other people that it's like, you don't have to have debt. You don't have to be straddled with this debt. And so when I started coming out of the recession, I saved all my money, started buying real estate and drove an old crappy car, didn't go out to eat for dinner, just grinded for years, 3 years. And that's the thing is I think that most people aren't willing to do is to knuckle down and grind. And, I'm actually working with one of my buddies. I mentioned you, Wayne, and he wants my lifestyle. He works for the city. He's like, I have to be there. I can't take time off. And I says, okay, well, look, what plan do you want? Do you want the 3-year plan? Do you want the 5-year plan or the 10-year plan? 3-year plan is a second job. You sell all your toys. You don't get your wife's nails done.
You're saving.
It's like boot camp. The 5-year plan is some of that, and the 10-year plan is less. And he's like, oh man, 3 years, I don't think I can do. I've got some older kids in the house. I want to enjoy time with them. I don't want to go to that kind of lifestyle. He's like, let's do the 5-year plan. So I sat down with him and I wrote down a 5-year plan. I'm like, sell your lots on the mountain that you paid $15,000 for. He sold it for like 80.
Yeah.
I said, sell your toy hauler, sell your side-by-side. He just sold his side-by-side and trailer 3 or 4 days ago. And he sends me these texts. Hey man, I got another $15,000 in the bank. I got another $80,000 in the bank. And I'm like, okay, hold. I think real estate's coming down. Yeah. Don't spend it. Don't blow it. Put that in an account and forget about it. And I think most people aren't willing to, when I told him 5 years, his wife actually was like, 5 years? That's forever. I was thinking of The Office, where, what's his name? Michael Scott says, I want a baby.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's going to take a year or 2 to adopt one. And he's like, I don't even know if I want a baby in 2 years. It's like,
true.
It's like, she was like 5 years. I don't even think out that far.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem with a lot of people is, one, it's a lifestyle. It's not a fad, your money management. And I always go into money for some reason. Your health is more important than your money. Money is just how we as men quantify another man's success.
which I think's wrong.
Me too.
But
Me too. But that's the report card.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's poor, so he's failing. But I have friends that, live on a beach in Bali that, I could buy him with what's in my wallet, but he's probably living a better life. He's happier. He's, he wakes up when he wants and walks the beach, and I'm here trying to, grind or whatever.
Yeah.
So I go
it's
to
all relative. It's all what you
yeah.
want.
I go to money, but at the same time, money does not buy happiness. You know that. I'm sure you've been without money and been with money.
I've made a lot. I've made little, and I agree. But I do have to say, life is a lot more enjoyable making a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, yeah.
I think if you're, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Being able to go and do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Absolutely.
There's something about that.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe that everybody,
right? I
don't care who you are, everybody deserves to be rich.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But being rich and being wealthy, two totally different things.
Right. But also being rich and being happy.
Exactly. That's where the wealth comes in. If you want to be healthy, wealthy, be wealthy, that's when you're healthy. That's when you're happy. That's when you're enjoying life. That's when you have a great relationship.
Yeah, good foundation.
Exactly. Yep. That's wealth.
Yeah.
I know a lot of rich people.
Right. That are sad. Me too.
Like that, I look at their life, and even with the money, I wouldn't want it.
Absolutely. Me too.
100%. I look with a lot of people that are wealthy.
Right.
That really don't have like the riches. They go to a 9 to 5, but they're happy.
Absolutely.
And they're enjoying life.
Yes.
That to me is wealthy too. Yeah. Like
I always say, money to me, if I had to define money is freedom.
It is.
And freedom is my happiness.
Well, I think it's more than it's not just the money, it's the cash flow. I mean, you've been able to get
absolutely.
I was going to ask that question. What's more important to you, cash flow or net worth?
Cash flow.
Exactly.
100%.
So many people are so focused on net worth in this society. No, you got to get your net worth to this.
Yeah.
Once you have $5 million net worth, you can retire.
Very good point.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I actually met with a mentor. So I encourage everybody to get a mentor. Find somebody that is where they want to be, whether they have a 6-pack, whether they have $1 million in the bank, whatever, whether their relationship is great, whatever you're looking to fill that gap, find that person and ask them. I was at the gym, a couple of days ago, and I saw a guy in there that looked like I wanted to look, and I went up to him. I'm like, hey man, you're obviously doing it right. What's your diet? And he was loving it.
Yeah.
People want to, if anybody's trying to tear you down, they're usually below you.
Exactly.
I've never met a person that's above me that's trying to kick me in the face.
Exactly.
So get a mentor, and that is key. I forgot where I was going with that.
About money. Get a mentor.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was a point that he had made. Anyway, get a mentor and try to
emulate other people's successes. I mean, you can do it faster. You don't have to go through the grind like Rick Trimmer here. He grinded for how long? I mean, 2008, 9, you lost everything.
Yeah, 3 years. You were hard grinding.
You were grinding.
Yeah.
Well, if you use you and your success as an example,
right?
Someone in the same position that you were in right now could do it faster if they just emulate what you did at a higher level.
Absolutely.
That's what's so important about mentorships.
Yeah.
Like I saw the importance of mentorships. I mean, 2020, I was $60,000 in debt, no job, broke.
2020?
Living with Keisha.
Like
I had a truck to my name.
Right.
My credit score was, I think, in the low 400s.
Right. Yeah.
Literally.
Right.
And I made a decision. I'm not living my life like this anymore.
Right.
So I started looking. I want to live a life like him. I want to live. I knew of you. I never met you then.
Right. Yeah.
I want to live like them. I want to travel like them.
Yeah.
So I started getting mentors. You were a mentor even before I met you.
Yeah. That's
because
weird.
of your travel and what you did.
Yeah. My example.
Your example. And correlate that to now, 2023.
Right. Night and day difference. Yeah. And that's what I think people don't realize is, I was always told you have to have money to make money.
Nope.
It's going to take, 40 years, for you to retire.
I mean, really think about it. How much did it really take you in dollars?
$28,000 is what it took me
to start your business.
To start my business, I got loans, which was just, that's fine. And you have to, if you have to.
Yeah.
But to get into real estate, it was $28,000 that we saved in 3 years. It took us 3 years to save 28 grand. Now, I can save that faster,
a lot faster.
But back then, that's what it took. And we bought our first condo with that. So I remember the point that I was making with the mentor was cash flow.
Yeah.
I met with him and I says, hey, what do you recommend? What should I didn't even know what my goals should be. I didn't even know what I was looking for. And he's like, well, what do you want? I'm like, I want to travel. I want freedom. And he says, well, I would recommend, he says, a lot of people try to get $5 million in the bank. And he says, that's going to take you, 20 years.
Yep.
He says, I would recommend getting cash flow. He says, go home and do the math and see what traveling would look like for you. And it was about 10 grand a month, I thought. And he says, if you can get to 10 grand a month in passive income, then it's the same as having $5 million of net worth. And that's what I did. And it took me 3 years and getting my company out of debt and starting to buy real estate and getting rental income and living within well below our means. And it took us 3.5 years and ended up, again, retiring and going to travel, went to 40 something countries.
40 countries in
3 years.
The last 3 years. That's awesome.
It's been 5 now. We did, we came back for COVID for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then this last year we added another 3 or 4 countries and did the US. We did a road trip to the US for a few months.
That's so cool.
We leave Monday. I've got my whole year planned out. I mean, we're gone from the country. We go to Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, whatever.
So shifting gears a little bit, like with your travel, I mean, you got little kids. Your oldest is how old?
My oldest is 10. My youngest is 2.
2. So do you homeschool when you're out? Like, how does that work?
We should, but we don't. I make my kids like book their own flights, check in at the airport. I make them exchange currency. I
so
try
you're teaching them the hard knocks of life.
I'm trying to. Yeah, it was funny. One of our funny stories. We were in Australia, and Castle was 8, and he's a sharp kid. He's really smart, and he lost a tooth, and the tooth fairy left him a $5 Australian dollar bill. And he woke up the next morning, starts crying. And I says, Castle, what's wrong? Because he gets $5 American at home. We give him $5. Probably a little high, but that's what we do. And inflation,
Yeah.
And so
expensive teeth.
Yeah. So he wakes up and he starts crying, and we're like, what's wrong? And he's like, this is like $3.20 American. My 8-year-old converted the currency
in his mind
instantly and was crying.
Oh my hell, that's awesome.
And he's like, I didn't realize it'd be, the tooth fairy would be Australian here. I'm like, shit, busted, man. But
that's funny.
So it's stuff like that. We teach them, go order your food, we're at McDonald's and they speak French. Yeah. And we're like, go get you a Happy Meal. And they're like, we don't speak French. And I'm like, figure it out.
Yeah.
And he's 8 and he's up there and he's like, Happy Meal. They're like, bonjour. And he's like, so, awesome. we took them all over Eiffel Tower, Great Barrier Reef, Coliseum. I mean, Normandy was my number one. Normandy, and I'm wearing my red shirt. Remember everybody on Friday, right? Remember everybody deployed. I'm very supportive of the military, and so we went to Normandy. Was our first place. But that's kind of, I don't make them get out a book and study math. It's like I teach them about how, why are we able to travel? Why are we able to live this life? What did daddy do? What did mommy do? We saved our money. We grinded. We take them to places that are poor.
Yeah.
And try to let them help kids and give them their toys. It's like my little boy gave a little kid in Bali a G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why'd you do that? And he's like, because his didn't have a leg, and it's like, oh, that's cool of you, So it's like, you're blessed. You have all these G.I. Joes at home. He is playing with one leg. So I don't get caught up in, are they learning math or reading? They'll figure that out, and they have. But yeah, it's more just, how does this world work? What is life about? Expanding, when I grew up, it was never, ever told to me that you could go to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
The Coliseum. My dad never said you can go swim with turtles on the Great Barrier Reef. It wasn't even in his thought.
It's so crazy.
And my kids, we're going to Costa Rica and they're packing their bag. I don't tell them what to pack. My little boy's got his little swimming mask and flip-flops, and we pack in backpacks. Yeah. So we're gone for a month. We all are in a backpack, no luggage.
Really?
Yep. Nice and light. Everybody gets stressed out. Like, what do I bring? And it's like, they sell stuff in Costa Rica.
That's true.
If I forget my flip-flops, I promise they have a store. So relax. Don't pack your whole life, because that just, the more you pack, we found out, and again, this is from lessons. I didn't know this, but me dragging 4 suitcases through the streets of, Venice on cobblestone, I'm yelling at my wife.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is bullshit. What'd you pack?
What the hell are we doing here?
What, and now we have a little backpack and we're bouncing down the road, and it's like, we're not fighting because we're not stressed out, So you figure it out as you go, and that's life. Yeah. And so we've got it down. Yeah. We're going for a month, a couple weeks with the Micklers, a couple weeks with, my parents.
That's so awesome.
And then, just keep bouncing down the road.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of my story. I like I said, anybody can do it. That's the biggest thing. I have so many, not so many, but 5 or 6 guys that I've met in the last year that I'm mentoring just because they asked. Yeah. I don't charge them. It was never my life goal, but they're under the grind. They're under the pressure of a 9-to-5 job. A lot of them make like $200,000 or $300,000 a year and broke, which I'm like, wow, we can fix you fast. Like you said, I take your 3-year plan and make it a 1-year plan if you really want to. And a couple of them are. So, if I can do it, anybody can. I do love that saying. Yeah. Because it's so true. It is. We all think, oh, Rick got lucky. It's like, I was $600,000 in debt. My parents didn't bail me out. Nothing. It was just hard work and dedication over time. Yep. It's like a diet.
It really is.
And so, yeah, I would encourage anybody out there to just change your habits. Like you said, tweak them, I came here, so on the way here, I stopped at McDonald's and got a couple Egg McMuffins. Before, I would have ate both of them, probably 4. Yeah. Now, I'm like, oh, it's 430 calories. I Googled it. I ate one, and I just tweaked it. Yeah. I just tweaked it. I still ate. I still had a McDonald's sandwich. I just tweaked it. And that's the thing. It's like, you don't have to change everything, but if you tweak a few things. And then the other thing I would encourage people to do is really figure out what they want. My dad was talking to me about my brother, and he's like, hey, your brother's not depressed, but just drifting. He doesn't know what he wants. He says he's sad. He's sad, and he wants more money. And I said, and we talked about it for a couple months, and then I finally says, why does he want more money? And he's like, I don't know. And I says, what does he want more money for? And he's like, I've never asked him. And I says, go back and ask him.
I bet you he doesn't know.
He went back and asked him, and he's like, I don't know. I just think more money would solve my problems. And it won't.
Nope.
It won't, especially if you don't have a plan, because then you're just going to buy, like you said, trucks, jewelry, shirts, clothes, whatever. So really sit down if you're by yourself or if you're married, and really have that communication of what do we want? Mm-hmm. And if it's to have a boat payment and a car payment and live in a house in Little Valley, great.
Then go do it.
Then go do it. And if you're living that, be grateful that you have it.
Exactly.
And if you don't want that, what do you want? And then just tweak it and start going that direction. Yeah. I met with my little boys last week and says, what are your goals for the new year? And they're like, we don't know. And I says, listen, boys, if you don't have a plan, you're just a ship drifting at sea. Mm-hmm. You have to have a destination. And so I says, well, Castle, you're 10. What do you want out of life? What's your dreams? And he says, to be rich. Hopefully to be rich was his words. And I laughed, and he says, what? And I says, hopefully isn't going to cut it. Yeah. You've got to grind. You've got to have a plan. You've got to, work hard. You have to have work ethic and financial responsibility and a budget. And I went through it, and he's like, oh, that sounds hard. And I'm like, that's why nobody does it. I told Gina, I don't know if you had this, but it's probably an ego thing. But after I lost everything and got it back, I was like, man, I'm a genius again. Yeah. I'm back to being a genius. And I was sitting there one day with Gina, and I was at my cabin, and I said, you know what? I just realized I'm not that smart. My competition is just that bad. And that is a bad thing to think about, No,
that's actually a smart thing to think about. Yeah. Because that actually, honestly, really think about it. It doesn't take brains. No. It doesn't take, the most genius idea.
Everybody thinks there's a secret.
It takes consistent work ethic every single day.
Exactly.
And it takes a positive mindset knowing that you can do it.
Yep. Yeah.
You have to have the mindset
Good point.
first.
Yeah. Good point.
Because I don't care. I've said this before and I'll say it again. And this is kind of one of the things because this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You could have the business plan, the opportunity literally laid in your lap to go out and change your family's financial future.
People, yeah.
But if you're not up here, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe you can do it, you'll never do it.
Good point.
You never will.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So it has to start with your mindset.
Yeah.
You lived an intentional life your whole life.
Right.
Even when you were down in the dumps, you still had intentions because you wanted to grow.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the money.
Right.
You knew you needed to become more, so you started reading.
Right.
You started bettering yourself.
Yeah.
Look what the byproduct has been.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The success you've had. It has nothing to do like your money, your success, and everything that you've done in life, you're going to continue to do. Is a byproduct of who you're becoming every single day.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like telling somebody to stop smoking.
Exactly.
Stop smoking, stop smoking. You can, tell you're blue in the face, but until they decide they want to stop smoking, that's it. It's on them. So yeah, it's a good point.
And I truly believe too, it's like that decision, it shifted your mindset to a point where it was literally a night and day difference.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
For me, it was too. So many people say, okay, it takes 21 days to make a habit.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
No, I don't either.
Because if you truly make a decision on something and you act upon that, you can change overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
That change can happen overnight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what happens with people with the 21-day plan, I understand what they're saying where you have to get in repetition. But I think what happens with a lot of people is you say, I'm going to go to the gym, and you go for a week and then you miss a day and then you fall apart. Exactly. You start saying, I am a statistic.
Yep.
I am garbage. And it's like, you had a bad day. You don't think I had bad days? I called my wife from my work when I was grinding, crying. Mm-hmm. I didn't miss a day of work. It's my kind of mantra. I didn't miss a day of work for 3 years. Birthdays, Christmas.
You just grinded.
100% grinded.
Yeah.
The longest stretch that I ever did of just grinding, and I would call my wife and, 2 years in, bawling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I doing, babe? I'm here on Christmas Eve working.
Yep.
And thank the Lord that my wife was like, babe, I believe in you. You were doing this for us. You're my hero.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, holy shit, and I hang up the phone and I'm like, let's go. But so one thing I want to say is thank you to everybody that helped me get here. This is my story, but they're part of it, major parts. Mm-hmm. The people running my companies right now, thank you. My dad who loaned me money in the recession, before the recession for my company.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people who build you up, who help you, like I said, mentors. You're the sum of the 5 people. We all hear it.
Yes.
And I always use the analogy. I was a snowboard instructor in Park City for a couple of years, and I'd have buddies come up that were no good at snowboarding, and I would go with them over to like the bunny hill, and I'm like, oh, I'm bored. This isn't fun. I can do way better than this. And then I'd have my buddies that come up that are professional snowboarders, and they're like, hey, let's go to the Black Diamond.
And you're like, no.
And I'd learn stuff. I'd go with, yeah. No, I went. I said yes. I'm one of those guys that always, like this, being on here, I always say yes, even if it's uncomfortable. And it pushed me. And that's how I look at life. If you surround yourself with people who are coasting, they're good people. I loved both groups. I would take a bullet for both groups of these people. But this group wasn't pushing me. They wasn't motivating me. They're talking about, how big the tires were on their truck and what pipes they put on their dirt bike. These guys are talking about stocks and bonds and real estate
and growth and all.
And that's what I wanted at that time. That's what I wanted, and neither one are bad. So surround yourself with people that are going after the goals that you want.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you have to cut these guys out completely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got friends like
that. So go
that
have
too.
a beer with them
Exactly.
and talk about how big their tires are.
It's all about the amount of time you're spent.
Absolutely.
That's all it is.
Yep.
The amount of time you spend with them. I think you bring up a great point on that.
That's a good point.
Proximity's power.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear it all day.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why my life shifted too.
Yeah.
Is I stopped hanging out with mediocre thinkers.
Yeah. And that's another thing, I appreciate you, you and Gina, I was nervous to come here. This is intimidating. And
you need to stop saying that because you're pretty freaking good at this.
Am I?
Yes.
Yeah. So. Oh, thanks. But I want to thank you and Gina and Ryan and all these people who take the time out of their schedule. I'm sure you're going to work here later,
Yeah, maybe. I'm just joking.
Yeah,
yes, I am.
But it's like we both got up at 5 a.m. and I know this will reach people and it will help people. And I want to just thank you for for doing it.
Well,
you know,
thank you.
I think that's, very, just awesome. For lack of a better word, it's like, I look up to people like that are trying to, I need to be better at that, where it's like, trying to give back and learn and help people and on your own growth.
Well, I mean, really think about it. You came on the show, so you are doing it.
Yeah.
So thank you. And honestly, thank you for that. It means a lot.
Yeah.
You'd say that. So, I mean, while we wrap up, honestly, Rick, I've gotten so much out of this. Like a couple of times I was just sitting here like, oh crap, I got to ask a question. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I talk a lot.
No, your story and what you've done and what you've been able to do in your life is absolutely amazing. And one thing I love about it, dude, you're only on your second chapter.
Right.
Like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Your first chapter.
Yeah.
Your second chapter. You still got a whole 40 chapters, 50 chapters left in your life. You're 42 years old.
I hope.
But
maybe not, and that.
But the thing is like.
Yeah. That's another big thing with me is my dad. So my dad died at 28.
Oh, wow.
From a brain aneurysm.
I didn't.
Well, yeah. My mom actually, if you want to go to Revitalized Womanhood, her podcast, my mom was on there and tells the story. And, woke up one morning, he was just kind of out of it and
wow,
died later that day.
So you didn't know your father?
No, my mom was pregnant with me, 5 months pregnant. So Kendall is my stepdad, and that's all I've ever known. And he's a beautiful man, and we all would have been lost without him. But I think that's another thing. Like you said, what's your purpose? What drives you? You saw this football thing with this gentleman. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Me and my boys were watching it at our cabin. We're up there at our cabin, just me and the boys, snowing outside, and that happened. And I started crying. I got sick to my stomach, and I started getting emotional. And Castle says, I think he just passed out. And I says, you don't fall like that, whatever.
Like I saw that, and I was like, I actually got that deep sickening feeling. Like
me too,
dude. We just watched someone collapse.
Me too. Like somebody just died. Yep.
On the field.
Yep.
That's not normal.
No. And I turned to my boys and I said, because I've told them my Instagram is onelife.solive.
Yeah.
That's my mantra. And I turned to my boys and I says, this is why we're going to Costa Rica next week. This is why we're going to, I'm pulling you out of school. This is why we're at the cabin tonight together, just me and the boys night.
Yep.
I says, you can die at 24 years old. Thank the Lord he didn't. And that's awesome.
They've actually got signs that he's.
My boy's a football fanatic and he reads it every day and we're cheering for him, obviously, but life is precious, and so I hope I'm on my second, third, fourth chapter, and I hope I have 40 more. But if I don't, I always tell my kids, my family believes in eternity. I don't know that I do, and that's another subject, but my family believes in eternity, and I says, the worst thing would ever happen to me is I die and go to eternity and regret what I would have done on this earth.
Yeah.
So live your life, take chances, say yes, get out of your comfort zone, because you don't know if you have 4 chapters, 8 chapters, 20 chapters. We don't know. None of us know.
And that's,
so I appreciate you saying that.
Honestly, but time is finite.
It is. It's our most precious thing.
It is. We treat it as if it's the most infinite thing we have, but it's the most precious thing we own.
It is.
And it is a true testament. That's why it's so important to live in the present.
It is. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I love it. So
I can talk to you forever, man. So
I know, dude.
Sorry.
I know. I mean, you brought up like the whole eternity and stuff. I was like, we could go off that. Because I honestly, I still kind of have the same beliefs as you.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I have the hope.
Me too.
I have the hope, but I truly believe we don't know.
Yeah. And
which is okay.
It is, but at the same time, I talked at my grandpa's funeral a few years ago, and he was my hero, just closest person to me. And I spent so much time with him. We went to so many trips, nonstop. Thankfully, I was able to at that time. And my sister came up to me and she says, I'm envious of the time you got with Grandpa. I should have been better at that, but I'll see him in my next life. And I turned to her and I says, Kim, I hope so, but I'm not taking that chance. I'm getting it now. And so my parents are going to Costa Rica with us. They went to Australia with us. They go to New Zealand with us. My parents I invite friends, family on all of our trips. So if you guys want to come and join up,
hell yeah.
Seriously, because it's not guaranteed for me. Some people have that feeling and that's great, but
I'm glad they have it. I mean, I've got family that I don't
live and die by that.
Yeah, but who knows? I know I've got friends that live and die by it, but
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I just can't have that assurity, right? Don't get me wrong. I believe that there's a higher power. There's energy.
I hope.
There are things that connect us. I mean,
Yeah.
for me,
Mm-hmm.
there's too much
Coincidence.
Coincidence
I agree.
to not.
I agree.
You get what I'm saying?
I agree.
I was like, there's just too many coincidences.
Yeah.
Like how this body works. My heart's beating. I'm not even thinking about it.
I know.
I mean, I'm breathing right now.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, you hear how like the thin the layer of the atmosphere is. If it
Exactly.
wasn't that, if the Earth was turned on another 2 degrees, the sun would burn us, or
I mean,
there's
it
crazy
just can't
stuff.
just happen by
know.
chance.
I know.
But that's just like, but I still believe we don't know.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
yeah,
and that's okay.
it is okay.
It's okay. So,
And I live like, you always hear that it's better to live like there is a God and find out there isn't than live like there isn't and find out there is.
Yep.
And I kind of tweak that and say, I'm going to live this life like there isn't, so that when I find out there is, I'm happy both ways. And not a slime ball, but just enjoy it, travel and
be good to people.
Be good and give back and, try to, so yeah, that was it, man. I just want to thank again, you and everybody that helped me and my wife and my kids get to where we are. It is not, it is not me alone. It is not her alone. So many people have, increased your network. I encourage people to increase your network, lean on people. If you're going through something, talk to them. And
well, I love the saying, your network is actually your net worth.
I love that. That's awesome.
It's not money.
Yeah.
If you want a higher net worth, build your network.
I heard a statistic the other day that said 80% of your success in your business is how you treat and handle people.
Oh, amen.
20% is your skill set. So if you're...
It's not about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Yeah. And
It's
that's
so
it,
true. So
it's weird.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, let's finish up here.
Sorry, man.
I can't believe we've been going this
I know.
long.
I know. I got to get home, bro. I got to take care of my kids.
I know.
My wife works.
Stay-at-home dad.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
where can people find you? I mean, let's talk your wife. Like, where can people find your wife, the Revitalized Womanhood?
Yep.
This is the second plug for them. I want to plug them every time.
No, I appreciate that, man.
I love what they're doing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a new thing. It's revitalizedwomanhood.com.
Okay.
She's on Instagram, Facebook, all those types of things. If you're spouse, wife, mom, she's got people in there that are 18 years old up to, 73 years old. It's growing, daily. It's just a place where you can get in there and it's, they hold them accountable and they encourage them to fulfill their dreams, whether it's plant a garden or take over start a business.
I love it.
So
what about you? Where can people find you if they want to reach out?
I'm on Instagram. Mine's onelife.solive.
Okay.
And if anybody needs any advice or anything, I'm always happy to help if I have phone service and the time. And then check out Order a Man. I'd encourage that. That's Ryan. He's our partner. I think there's 1,500 members in his group. So it's what we're aiming for and what we're shooting for. Gina's going to have some retreats this year at our ranch.
That's awesome.
So there's some big things coming up. It's brand new. So that was it.
Well, whatever I can do to help you guys out, count me in.
Yeah.
I'm here for you.
I appreciate it, man.
And honestly, once again, thank you. I got so much out of this.
Me too. I did too.
If people actually sit down with pen and paper and listen and take notes, you can gain so much. Like I gained so much. Like I'm excited to get to work now and kind of shift some mindsets that I have too. So thank you, Rick.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for
so
what you
much.
do.
Okay, bud.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys for coming out. Remember, if you can, share this with anybody you think that could use this. Thank you for coming to the podcast. Love you guys.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I not to steal your thunder here, but share it.
Share.
Get the message out. The only way that these podcasts grow, you don't advertise. I'm sure you're not running ads in the middle of this. We don't either. So, that's one thing for me that I've really started to value as I get older is people who support my brands, my companies, buy my cabinets. That's a beautiful thing, so, buy local, all those types of things. So if you're listening to this, share it, like it. It's very simple. Takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And grow this message and just want to back that up.
Honestly, thank you so much for that. So,
thanks, brother.
Okay, guys, thank you.